Hey everyone. Let's take a few minutes and just chat briefly about a very popular style of bait that has been used for many years for spring salmon and trout fishing, uh, primarily along the south shore of Lake Ontario, and that is stick baits. Some people might call them crankbaits. I, you know, I consider a crankbait usually the shorter, stubbier baits, more often used for bass fishing. And these are the kind of baits that we're going to talk about. The longer, more slender style profile baits, stick baits, and how we fish them in the shallower waters, primarily in the springtime. There's a lot of, I guess, history and tradition with these style of baits. It goes back way to at least from what I remember from the 80s and the early 90s. And I think why they were so popular and still are now for some extent is because we were limited with the devices and the types of line and all the equipment that we had back then as opposed to what's available to us now. And fishing stick baits in that shallower water, anywhere from 10 to 30 feet of water, stick baits were just kind of the most user friendly ways to fish that water when the salmon and the trout are in there, for a few weeks during the springtime. Nowadays, we have short sections of lead core and small divers and little snap weights. There's some guys will prefer to fish spoons now instead of stick baits. And before, besides just downriggers, planer boards were still fairly new back then, and so stick baits were and still are very effective for fishing in that shallower water. As well, back then, our winters used to be much colder, regularly. So that shallow water bite would generally be a little more prolonged. It would last, 4 or 5 weeks, sometimes maybe some years a bit longer, but, we would definitely go for that long where we're fishing in that 10, 15 to like 30 to 40 feet of water. And stick baits just really lent themselves very well, and they still do. Some years, that window where they're effective is a little shorter or longer than others, just kind of depending on how the water sets up every year. But nonetheless, we'll take a couple minutes and discuss the different types of baits that were and still are effective, and a couple tricks on how to use them properly. Um, the first thing about stick baits is, while they're very effective for catching salmon and trout, um, they're generally designed from the bigger lure brands, not so much for salmon and trout fishing, but usually more for walleye and bass and pike fishing for the most part. And that's kind of reflected in the terminal tackle, the split rings and the hooks that they often come equipped with, because these baits are made to be used all throughout North America for different species. And our Great Lakes fishing is just a very small regional component in the sport fishing industry. So we need to get more life and catch and up your landing percentages using these baits. There's a couple things that often need to be done to prolong the life of the baits and up your landing percentages, and that's primarily upgrading the hooks and sometimes even the split rings that come with your baits. This is a live target smelt here, a very popular bait, and this one I've left on just for demonstration purposes. The stock factory hooks and split rings that it comes with. This is one that I will generally use more for walleye and smallmouth bass fishing. I don't have it set up for salmon fishing so much. I've left it as it is, as it comes out of the package. Where here's another one. This is the banana smelt, but as you can see in the difference here, split rings and the hooks are upgraded. The thing about these baits is um, the salmon and the trout, they put a lot of wear and tear on the baits. So I like to often use 2 times strong hooks, regardless of brand. There's many good brands out there: Mustad, Owner, Gammy, Torpedo. They all make excellent hooks. And you don't always need to actually go larger in hooks. Generally, the same size hook that comes with them will do, just as long as you upgrade the quality on them. And sometimes you might want to upgrade the split rings that come too. One thing that you will want to be careful about when you're messing with the hooks and the split rings is sometimes you can throw them off, and you want to make sure that the action is still going to perform well. So always check your baits and make sure that they're going to swim properly at the speed that you troll at. And that's usually, around 1.8 to 2.2 miles per hour. That's kind of the window that we use our stick baits at. Some guys will fish them a little quicker sometimes, but I think 1.8 to 2.2 miles per hour is kind of the standard speed for the most part. Some baits that come, this is an older Bomber Long A, some baits that traditionally come with 3 hooks. A good thing to do is to remove the belly hook. The way that the kings often attach the baits, sometimes they'll slash them crossways, and it allows them to twist and mangle the baits up, and it certainly makes a mess and make things more difficult in the net when you're landing the fish. So I often, and I know many anglers will remove the belly hook on them. And even some anglers will altogether just fish with 1 hook on them too as well. This kind of allows you to maybe go up 1 size bigger. So if these were equipped with a number 2 hook, you could probably get away with going up to a single number 1 hook on there. And then that way your stick bait kind of fishes like a spoon. A spoon only has 1 treble hook as well. I'm constantly playing with different profiles of baits and experimenting with different size and brand hooks to see what works well for any given bait. So I encourage you to try the same. We'll just quickly go over a couple or a few different brands and styles of baits that work fairly well. Some of the older ones, old classics that still have a place in my box and have stood the test of time. I think many anglers don't leave the dock in the spring without a Rapala J13. This is the old chartreuse model. Can't really find these anymore. These are a beauty for sure. The old Rebel Fast Tracks. This is the larger one with a deep diving lip. The jointed model. This is the smaller, shallower, straight model. So in those popular clown diamond patterns. Bomber Long A's, of course. Bomber also still makes deep diving ones and jointed ones as well. And of course, Ripple and Redfins too. As the years went on, newer baits started becoming more available. Reef runners, of course, the ripsticks and the deep diving ripsticks. I think this is Hot Flame color. And then, of course, a very popular walleye bait, but still works well for salmon and trout, your Husky Jerks. You can use the shallow ones as well. This is their the number 12 diving one. As mentioned too, the live target smelt are an excellent bait. lifelike finishes. So they have their straight models in the shallow and the diving. And they're banana models again in a shallow model and a deeper diver as well. One bait that's been very hot the last few years has been from Yali, the Moon Eye Minnow. Kind of looks like it's got the same profile of some other baits, kind of like a Ronoski and a Bomber Long A, but these are very high quality, well constructed baits. The hooks that come with them are quite strong. They will stand up to a salmon. And what they do intentionally is they don't make them, even though it's the same profile size bait, they don't make them with the belly hook on purpose, because they know that most anglers are going to end up removing them anyway. So excellent running baits. They also have, I don't have any here right now, the deeper diver, cousin of this bait, the hooligan, is also a great bait. So the shallow diving baits, they work quite well, with the short lips. In the shallower water, the average dive curve for most of these baits is anywhere from maybe 5 to 8 feet of depth with about 100 feet of line out. These shallower ones work excellent too with short colors of lead core line. Some will even fish them off a slide diver or a dipsy diver, but I really like fishing these on their own in the shallow water, or when we're getting out a little bit deeper. Anything with a 2 to a 5 color section of lead core can work real well. And of course the diving baits too, many of these will have a dive curve of anywhere from 10 to 20 feet on average. Of course they vary. You'll want to check the Precision Trolling app to check to see what their maximum curves are and how much feet of line or what type of line to achieve those depths too, but work very well. So yeah, stick baits. They've stood the test of time, and they'll always work. Be sure to get yourself a good assortment of them, and I'm sure they'll work very well for you this season. Hopefully some of this has been helpful for you.